Hey guys, Chief Fruity here, and this is the BTS for Choir of Angels, which is the second track off of Wreckage. So last week I put out Trolls Walk BTS, and today I'm putting out Choir of Angels. So first I'm just going to go right into all the audio tracks here. So first off, I did 36 audio tracks is the grand total, and then the BPM is 130. So now I'm going to go right into this first lead here that starts off the intro. It has a fading and pluck. So it's fading in with the pluck increasing, and the synth is right here. So this is it in the harmonic. So this was actually a preset called Zombie, and I made some changes to it. So first, instead of showing you everything, I'm just going to go to the Zombie preset, which is this. So you can tell that still sounds kind of similar to the lead from Choir of Angels, and that's because it is. Just I did some changes to it. So first thing is Mode X is the low pass, so I turned up the low pass, and then that got it to sound like this, a little more full. And then I turned up the resonance, which was with Y, and I turned up the harmonizer all the way up with Z. So that's really just what I did to get this synth, as well as it has 7 voices unison, but that was already included in the preset. And really, it's just with volume, it's running this envelope. So I looked around and I saw that it was running a volume envelope and a filter envelope for this cutoff. So it's running those two, and then this is the resonance amount that's put onto mode Y. And then this is the harmonizer width, which is put onto mode Z, which would be modulating this harmonizer right here, the width right there. And then it has a pitch, it's running an envelope for this pitch right here. And a pitch of vibrato depth. And this is on an envelope. And unison pitch thickness on velocity mapping. So what this would do with the velocity mapping would be the louder the note, aka the harder you press it, the more velocity the note would have. No, I mean the more unison pitch it would have. So basically, if you did it really hard, it would have more unison. If you did it soft, it would have less unison, so you can hear it. Compared to, so it has more unison the harder you press it, which basically would also be turning up this velocity here. This would get rid of unison and add unison. So that was what that's doing there. And a filter 1 envelope amount on mode X mapping. This is what the cutoff is with the low pass that I turned all the way up. And a harmonic prism. This is basically just what is making up the harmonic structure of the sound right here. And then a global EQ, which is just doing some EQ. Depends on where you press the note. It's just because this is on, I think it would be called like keyboard mapping. I think that's what it's called. So it's matching the keyboard to the pitch, which is giving it this EQ here. And then that's it. So that is what is going on inside of this preset, and I mapped this to track 18, where I put on some reverb, because without the reverb, you know, it's just kind of boring. So I added on some reverb to that synth. So that was the synth of the lead for Choir of Angels, and now for the pattern, is it's just playing in G here. So that's the lead there. And then this noise right here is from a GMS, and it's just full-on noise with cutoff that's going in and out. And then so it goes into the verse. So in this verse there's a lot more stuff to go over. So the lead continues here like that. And then I put in some bass here like this. And then with this bass here, oh, wrong button. This was made in a harmonic. So this one was a preset I made, and well, no, it's not a preset, it's just a synth I made. And basically all I did here was I just turned down the pitch on the standard saw, because with this synth there's not a whole lot needed in Harmore, so I just turned off the pitch, and as you can see in the upper left here, I took off the saw wave. This is it with the saw wave, and then without. So I just entirely took off the wave, and I added in my own wave in the effects with this wave shaper. So I just thought it would be a lot easier to do it this way, because then I could really personalize the wave I wanted. And I got this distorted wave. So I'm running it through that wave, and then I ran it through a reverb and some EQ, very slight. And then I put it through a Vocodex, and this Vocodex is doing most of the bass processing here. So I have the wetness about 75% with very little SG. The SG is basically for compression issues, so you can watch the volume here with the SG all the way gone. It really shoots it up, so the SG is kind of just acting as a compressor, so that's why I enabled that. And then the real, which is basically activating a reverb here, I have that up to give it that little touch at the very end of kind of reverb there. And then I have some bands and band multiplier activated, as well as it is on a harmonizer of 2 and 45 bands of distribution, so I've lessened that a slight bit, just to kind of get the bands separated out more so there's a good distance in between them. So that's why I brought them down just a little bit. And then down here I did some quick EQ to get rid of some lows here. So that's all that's going into this bass. It's really simple. And then the pattern I'll show you again. It is just bringing it down from F5 to C. And that's just adding in some bass to this verse. And then I have some ARP going in here, which I just titled Spooky because originally I wanted Choir of Angels to be kind of a creepier track. But then it got the sound that it is now, and then I titled it Choir of Angels, because I started this not knowing what it was going to be named. So basically I turn up the harmonizers, this has some vibrato, as you can tell, and 7 voices in unison, and it's going to a saw wave. The frequency's down just a little bit because when it's all the way up, it gets too flat. So I turn it down a little bit to really get the vibrato out. So then, let's see here, looks like that's about it, except for mode Y. Mode X, Y, and Z are all the way up. So let's look into here. So now the filter 1 frequency is on an envelope to bring it down. And then the filter 1 resonance amount is on mode Y mapping, and that's turned all the way up, so it has full resonance. And then a harmonizer width is on mode Z mapping, which is really just modulating this width right there. And then I have a pitch vibrato depth, which is bringing up the vibrato as it fades in. And a unison pitch thickness, which again is on the velocity mapping. So here, except it's the less you push it down, the more unison it has. The harder, then the less unison. So that's reversed from the synth I showed you before that was acting as the lead. So now right here, this is on the filter envelope amount. Filter 1 envelope, and this was on velocity, so again the harder you press it versus the less, it basically just messes with the filter for that note. And I have a harmonic prism, which again this is the very same thing as the lead, and a global EQ here. So this is the very same, and then as the same lead actually made this synth off of that lead. So yeah, so this synth was made off of that Choir of Angels, the first lead I showed you in the beginning. And it's just playing this little pattern here to kind of just to give it some more resonance. I have a really quick little sub bass playing here. Where is it? Here it is. Really, it's just some sine wave at really low pitch with a little bit of reverb here, and that's what's playing there. And then I have some kicks going in on the verse here. So it's just a pretty simple kick onto track 1 with some reverb playing there on quarter notes. And then I have crashes to fade it in as well. And on the very last measure of the bar, I put on this snare to give it that EDM kind of feel. And then with this snare, it has full reverb there and full reverb with the effector. So that's what's playing for this first part of the verse. And then for the second part of the verse, I progressed it with the bass is now playing this. So it's the same synth, just I changed the pattern up, and then the lead is now playing this. And then the spooky kind of ARP thing is playing the same. And then the sub's playing the same, although I did change the drum beat here to play a 2/4 snare. As well as I still have the snare hits on the final ends, because this snare is the same exact snare, just a louder volume. And I put this on track 3. It has the same reverbs, just I turned it up a lot more. So that's what's going on right there, and then I have some crashes to fade it out into the rise right here with this noise again. So that's it for the intro and verse, and then with this rise it breaks down into chords. So now for the rise here, and basically with the rise it just starts off with some crashes, and then this envelope is just putting up the modex of drums because I'm fading them out later, so I wanted to bring them full here. So it has some crashes, some noise is fading in to bring it down, and then the lead is playing at a pluck of 0. And that is basically to calm it down. And you don't really hear the lead here at all in the original track, but a fun little fact is that the lead is playing throughout the entire song. There's no times where it's not. It's just at a 0 pluck, so you can't really tell that it's there or not. But the main part of this break right here in the rise is the chords. So I'll play you the loop right here that the chords are playing. So those are the chords, and this is the synth that they're on, and this is the same synth as the lead. I only made 4 changes, and the 4 changes are I took the phaser and put it up to 100% to give it a lot of phase, which is giving it this feel. And then I took off all the harmonizers, because the harmonizers are making it kind of sharp. So I wanted to smoothen this out, so that's why I put on the phaser and took off the harmonizers. And that got it smooth, and then it worked really well with chords. So that is what I did there. And then I just start bringing up some noise, and I fade in the lead here with the pluck. So that's the lead fading in, I have the noise fading in. The chords do not, because they're already full, so they don't need to fade in. And then I have the basses fading in, and I have a kick roll going on here. And then right on this little break before the drop, I do have a kick on the 1. And some crashes to bring it to the break, and then to bring it to the drop with a snare to pop it right here. So that's what I did with the drums. And then right here I have the bass going, so I'll just single this out. So this bass here is actually a second bass. It's this clone of this bass that was playing before in the verse, but I added prism to it. And the reason I added prism was to get it a little sharper and more distorted for the drop. And this is onto track 21. and it has playing the same effects. I cloned all of the effects, so they're all the same. It's just the prism that I put onto full, and I have it on mode Y mapping. So right here, this is mode Y, which is the prism, and this is mode X, which is the cutoff, which is playing this. And then it is on a pitch drop from D to F sharp, and through the rise, it's playing the same little bass drop the entire time. And then I have this synth, FM synth, and this one is also fading in. So this FM synth was made in a Citrus, and see, it's playing an A3. That'll be right here. So this FM synth is playing all triangle waves for the most part. Triangle, triangle, triangle. Oh, that's a saw, and a saw, and then another saw. And then it's playing a sine wave, but operator 6 is not in use. It's only 1 through 5 that I'm using here. So I did some interesting stuff with the pitch ratios as well. So 1 is 2, like normal, and then 2 is also 2, and then 3 is 2, and then 4 goes to 64. So it goes from here with a total of 6 all the way up to 64, back down to 56. And this is basically what gives it this weird little... So it's basically playing two synths at once. There's one that's going like whoa, and the one that's going like yai. So you can kind of hear both of those at a lower pitch. So normally that may be something you'd want to get rid of, but I thought it would be cool to keep it in for this track, to give it kind of like a second dimension kind of feel. So I kept it in. So that's all that's going on in the Citrus, as well as just well, the only other thing I didn't cover is just the amount of these operators, but just they go from full to decrease in value. And then on track 10. Okay, so this was the Vocodex that it's going through, and right here it has full wet and full SG, as well as a real, some band values, and a no band multiplier, but it's going through a band multiplier right here. And it has up to 2 for harmonizers, and that's all I did inside of this Vocodex. Pretty simple, because I didn't want to get this synth too vocally, and vocode it too much. I wanted to keep it with the FM. And this is the wave shaper it's going through, as well as a reverb and a fast distortion, which I actually used later in the track. So that's what's going on here. This is the reverb envelope, because back here I get some reverb going on to the bass. So now in the drop is really simple. This is probably one of the simplest drops I've ever done, especially in Wreckage. So this wall waves is pretty simple, but this one is the simplest one out of Wreckage, and this is the drum beat it's playing. So I have variation on the hi-hats from this is a quieter hat and this is a louder hi-hat. To give it some variation there. And then the second beat in the loop is a second kick to give it some variation, then it goes back to the first one, and then the third one, or the fourth one. Again, some more variation there, and it's looping that beat throughout the entire drop. And I put in the sub bass back in. The pitch drop is the same every time. No, it's not actually. And so the pitch drop goes from this prism envelope to this prism envelope, so it's just changing prism each time to this. So I just kind of changed those out. They're alternating every time until here in the little drop B, then it's the same one each time, because I wanted to get rid of as much prism as possible for the second part to kind of smoothen it out. So for the pattern that this synth is making, this is here. So this is the bandwidth that modulates up to full, because it starts in at 0. and then it's just playing this pattern from A to G sharp, and it's continuing that. And this is the reverb envelope, like I said before, because I messed with reverb here. So then here it stays the same. For this third one, I changed it a little bit. And the fourth one's the same as well. So that's basically it for this first part with the bass, and then I have the noise coming in, and this lead is slowly fading in. And that's all that's going on for the first section of the drop. So it is really simple. And then for the second part, like I already said, the pitch drop has less prism, but this FM synth is a little different. It's doing this. So what I did here is I took out this envelope and I just kept it with this about 75% of cutoff with a full reverb, so it had this feel. And it does that 3 times, well, except for this one. This one's different. And then the first one gets played again, and then the final one. And then the reverb envelopes stay the same. The drums are the same. There's a crash right here that fades it from the first part to the second part. So that's what's going on in here. The lead gets faded in even more. And it gets too close to about 25%. And then I have noise coming in to bring it to the bridge. So that was probably one of the simplest drops out of Wreckage, as I said before. Now to go into the bridge. So for the bridge here, this is actually my favorite part of the entire song. And so for the bridge here, this is actually my favorite part of the entire song. And it starts off with a crash and quarter note kicks. Just like this. With a snare on the final hit. And it keeps doing that through the entire bridge until the very end, where it has a crash and then this reversed snare. So that's the percussion for this bridge here. And then I have noise coming out, or noise coming in, to go decreasing noise. And then the lead is fading in. It is from the exact position it left off in at the drop, so it's not at completely 0. So it fades in over the entire bridge, and then these chords come back. I have this little bass part here to fade it into the verse. And this was the same bass from the drop, from the by automation wise, but in the pattern I brought it up instead of down to fade it in. And then now into the verse. So I have a different drum beat here, and this is the drums for the verse. It's really simple. Then on the very last measure I just added in an extra hat. So really simple drums for the verse, and I have the sub bass coming back in, as well as noise coming to decrease. I have this ARP back in, and the lead, I put it to the progressed version of the lead. As well as the bass is back in. I'll play this again for you. And then the chords, I actually put 2 chord tracks. So one is playing just to the left and one's playing just to the right. That would be my left and my right. So these are the chords. They're the same chords, same synth, just playing all the way to the left. And then these chords are playing all the way to the right, which would be my right and my left again. And then both of those are playing together. together at the same time. And you really can't tell when you're listening to the track, but the reason I did this is pretty much to kind of make it so the chords surround you, and then this lead is playing in the center, so they're not all in the same, because these were the same synth, so they could blend together, and I really did not want that to happen, so I put this in the center and the left and right. And then, so that's what I did for the verse, and there's no progression on the second part, it just kept going, because I thought it didn't really need progression. I did try progressing it, but it just ended up ruining it. I just wanted to keep it how it was. And then I faded everything out here. So the drums, I actually recorded the drum loop with Edison and produced it as an MP3. And then I faded out through Mode X. Now I could have done this individually, one Mode X per drum, but it would be a lot easier just to record the whole thing and fade it out this way. So I did it that way. Crashes to bring it in and out. I have this bass again that's going up to fade it out of the downfall and back into this little kind of rest with the rise right here. Bridge is what I meant. And then I have the spooky sound that continues the whole time. I don't fade that out. So yeah, I only did fade out this lead here, and then it goes right into the break, which is playing back the normal center chords and lead, basically just exactly as it did before. It's an exact copy of the other rise. The bass fades in exactly the same, but on the second drop, the drum beat's the same for the drop, but the FM pattern is a little bit different, so I'll show you this. So the FM pattern is doing this. So this was all one synth. If you were thinking it was two, well, you're mistaken, because it's one, and that's where this distortion comes in that I said I used later. I used this. And playing the same pattern, although if you remember from the last drop, the pattern, the notes were like this. They were dotted. But then here I made them full. And I wanted them to be full, so the sound kind of continues like this. And then I bring the cutoff down to 0 here, so there's this little dead space. So there's this little dead space. And then down here, there's dead space, but I brought the distortion up to full. So it makes up for that, resulting in this synth. And then the bandwidth is coming in the exact same. This is the cutoff, and this is the reverb. I have the lead fading in before, just like last drop, and then it's playing this same pattern the entire first section of the drop. And then it fades into the second part. And then here I actually bring the lead up all the way to a full before going out into the next verse. So I kind of why I thought I'd do that for progression, because I'm using this same pattern in the very first drop here. So I didn't want to put the same thing again twice, so I thought I'd bring up the lead a little bit more. And then for the final section of this FM synth right here, it does this little different. And then I did that to kind of add suspense here, and originally this was going to be a dead spot, but then I decided to put in this. Which is the same lead it's been playing, just it's speeded up a lot. And then this is the normal pattern here, but I sped up that first little part a lot, and then it goes right into the verse. Which is the same as before, as this verse. The only difference is it actually faded out, and then the fade out lasted longer here. And then the entire song fades out, and this is where there's the master volume that I was talking about that goes out. So that was Choir of Angels. It is a pretty simple track. There's not too much complexity here since all three of the synths were made off of this first lead, and then the chords were made off the lead. The spooky was made off the lead. This bass I made with a Prism and Vocodex, and then the FM synth was actually made by combining kind of two feels with from spiking from 2 for the frequency value, 2 for the frequency, yeah, 2 for the frequency, up to 64, back down to 58. And that's really just what did this song to make it how it is, and the lead is playing throughout the entire time. So yeah, that's it for Choir of Angels. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe, because next week I'm going to put out a video for the BTS of Outcasts. That'll be every Monday. I'm going to put out a BTS for Wreckage. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.